They thought lunchtime was the perfect moment to break her, just a quiet black girl no one would defend. In the chaos of Westbrook High's cafeteria, 4 bullies dragged her onto a table, laughing like they owned the school. What they didn't know was the twist waiting outside those doors. Because 5 minutes later, the person walking in wasn't a teacher, it was her mother, cold, silent, and trained to destroy the kind of monsters who touched her child, and she made them beg. The cafeteria at Westbrook High was usually a roaring ocean at lunchtime, chairs scraping, trays clattering, conversations firing off in every direction like ricocheting bullets. But the moment Nia Carter stepped through the double doors, something subtle shifted. It wasn't silence. Westbrook never gave her that mercy. It was more like the room hiccuped, just for half a second, as if it couldn't decide whether to ignore her or judge her first. Nia felt it immediately. Every school she had ever attended had the same energy the first week, a kind of animalistic instinct that students didn't bother hiding. They sniffed out the newcomer, scanned her clothes, her skin, her posture, and instantly assigned her a ranking on the invisible food chain. At Westbrook Honors Wing, her ranking became obvious on day 1, bottom. She adjusted the straps of her backpack, kept her eyes low, and walked toward the empty table near the side wall. It was always empty. Nobody wanted to sit in the outsider zone, especially not next to the only black girl in the advanced placement cluster. Nia didn't mind. Silence was safer than fake smiles. She set her tray down, simple turkey sandwich, apple slices, and a bottle of water, and exhaled slowly. Just get through lunch. 30 minutes. Don't look up. Don't engage. But the universe at Westbrook High had different plans. 2 girls at the nearest table leaned toward each other, whispering behind their palms. A boy across the aisle snorted, nudged his friend, and jerked his chin toward Nia. The message was loud enough without words. Look, the new girl is here, again. Nia swallowed hard. This wasn't new, but it still stung. Then another sound cut through the cafeteria noise, a short, sharp whistle. It came from the center of the room. Jordan Hale, captain of the baseball team, owner of the loudest laugh in the building, son of the school board president, Westbrook's untouchable golden boy, and the undisputed king of this cafeteria. Jordan lounged lazily at the center table, orange and white varsity jacket slung over his shoulders like a crown. His crew, Damon, Luke, and Tyler, laughed at something on Tyler's phone. Probably a clip of someone getting humiliated. That was their favorite genre. Jordan's eyes flicked toward Nia. He smirked, slow and deliberate. "There she is," he said loudly enough for tables to hear. "The honors pet project." Damon and Luke looked over, grinned. Tyler raised his phone, already recording something just in case content happened. Jordan tilted his head, studying Nia the way a bored cat studies a trapped mouse. "This girl is perfect for playing this new game," he muttered under his breath, amused. Nia kept her gaze fixed on her sandwich, pretending not to hear. She'd learned over the years that reacting even a flinch was an invitation. But Jordan didn't wait for invitations. A tray suddenly flew through the air. It wasn't tossed. It wasn't dropped. It was aimed. The plastic tray skidded across Nia's table like a mini landslide, apple slices scattering, juice splattering, and the cold mush of mashed potatoes exploding across her shoe. The whole cafeteria gasped in one synchronized inhale. Nia froze. She knew it wasn't an accident before she even looked up, but she looked anyway. Across the room, Jordan met her eyes. He lifted his hand in a mock salute and winked. Not a sorry wink. Yeah, I did that. What will you do about it? Wink. Heat crawled up Nia's neck, but she swallowed it, forcing her breathing to stay steady. She bent down and wiped her shoe with a napkin, her hands trembling just enough to betray her. "Don't cry. Don't give them anything to film." She stood slowly. The cafeteria noise returned in jittery waves, murmurs, whispers, snickers. Nia lifted her head, ready to walk away, but she didn't get the chance. Standing between her and the exit were 4 orange and white varsity jackets. Jordan, Damon, Luke, Tyler, blocking her path completely. and all of them were smiling. The kind of smile predators wear when the hunt finally gets interesting. Naya's next step would determine everything, and Jordan was counting on it. The 4 varsity jackets closed in around Naya like a brightly colored cage. The cafeteria seemed to shrink, every table leaning inward, every spectator waiting to see how the newest episode of Westbrook Entertainment would unfold. Nia forced herself to stand straight, even though her pulse hammered so loudly she could almost hear it echoing in her ears. Jordan stepped forward first. Of course he did. He looked down at his spotless sneakers, white, crisp, painfully clean, and then looked up at Nia with theatrical disappointment. "You gonna say sorry," he drawled, "for messing up my shoes?" Nia blinked. There wasn't a single drop of food on him, not even a crumb. "I didn't touch you," she said calmly, though her throat felt tight. "Your tray hit me," Damon snorted. "Wow, she talks," Luke added. "Must be her first day learning manners." Jordan lifted a hand, and instantly his little audience quieted. He enjoyed that too much. "Nia," he said, speaking her name like it was a joke. "Here's how this works. You bumped into me. My lunch went flying. And you apologize. Easy." Nia held her ground. "I didn't bump into you." A small ripple spread through the cafeteria, the universal signal that someone had just stepped over an invisible line. Jordan's jaw tightened for a split second. Then he smiled, the dangerous kind. "Oh, so she's brave," he said. "Or stupid." Tyler raised his phone a little higher, making sure the camera caught Naya's face. This wasn't just bullying, this was content creation. Jordan exhaled dramatically and turned toward where the supervising teacher usually stood. "Yo, Mr. Keller," he called out loudly, the picture of innocence. "We got a problem here." Except Mr. Keller wasn't there today. And Jordan knew it. What he did know was that Principal Collins, champion of athletes and guardian angel of Jordan Hale, was just around the corner finishing a meeting. Jordan reached into his pocket and tapped a number on his phone. He didn't call the supervisor. He called the principal directly. Nia felt her stomach twist. She knew something bad was coming the moment Jordan's smile stretched wider. Seconds later, the doors swung open. Principal Collins marched in, mustache rigid, tie slightly crooked, as if he'd been pulled from something important. His eyes scanned the room, but the second he spotted Jordan, his whole face softened. "What's going on?" Collins asked, already suspecting the answer he wanted. Jordan pointed at Nia with a wounded expression worthy of an Oscar. "She threw food at me, sir. Look at the mess. She's being disruptive." Naya's mouth fell open. "That's not true." "Nia," Collins interrupted sharply, raising his hand like a traffic sign. "We do not shout in the cafeteria. This behavior is unacceptable." A collective gasp moved through the room. Even the students who hated drama looked confused. Jordan hid his smirk behind his hand. Damon elbowed Luke, whispering, "Told you. Easy win." Nia felt heat rising in her face, not fear this time, but anger. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said firmly. "They're the ones." "Enough," Collins snapped. "If you can't control yourself, I'll have to involve your parents." Jordan's eyebrows shot up in mock sympathy. "Yeah, Nia, maybe you should calm down." Collins nodded approvingly at Jordan, then glanced at his spotless shoes. There wasn't a speck of dirt on them, but he still tutted sympathetically. Inside Nia, something cracked, not loudly, but deeply. Westbrook wasn't just unfair, it was rigged. She picked up her tray, trying to walk toward the exit, before tears betrayed her. But before she could take 2 steps, Damon moved fast, blocking the doorway with a single, solid arm. "Whoa there," he said, leaning in with a grin that never reached his eyes. "It's not time for you to go anywhere." Nia's escape route had vanished, and Jordan was only just getting started. The cafeteria crowd thickened around Nia as if pulled by gravity. Students shifted out of their seats, abandoning half-eaten lunches, sensing the kind of spectacle Westbrook High seemed addicted to. Phones lifted, voices hushed, the air tightened. Jordan stepped into the center of the ring, forming around them casual, confident, owning the space without even trying. Damon and Luke flanked him like well-trained shadows. Tyler stayed slightly behind, holding his phone high and angled, always angling, capturing everything with a predatory excitement twitching in his fingers. Nia's pulse quickened, not from fear yet, but from the realization that she had been swallowed whole by the room. Jordan grabbed a random tray from a nearby table. Someone gasped. Someone else laughed nervously. With a flick of his wrist, he slid the tray across the table until it bumped against Nia's hip. He tapped the edge of it with 2 fingers. "Here," he said smoothly. "Eat this. It's what someone like you should be having." The tray contained a disgusting pile of cold fries, a half-crushed muffin, and a glob of something that might have been yogurt or glue. The smell alone made Nia's stomach twist. She clenched her fists at her sides. "Stay calm. Don't react. Don't cry." Jordan leaned closer, eyebrows raised in mock innocence. "What? Too good for it?" Nia forced her voice not to crack. "I'm not eating that." Jordan's smile thinned, growing sharper. "You sure? 'Cause the last girl who said no didn't finish the school year here." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moved through the circle. Nia held her position, even though her hands trembled. She didn't want to show fear, but her body betrayed her anyway. And Jordan saw it. He always saw it. He snapped his fingers. Damon snickered. Luke pushed the tray closer. Jordan tapped Nia's arm with 2 condescending pats. "Come on, Nia. Show a little respect. You're new here. You should know your place." Nia swallowed hard. "I won't eat that." There it was, the second refusal. The moment Jordan had been waiting for. His eyes lit up with a kind of sick thrill. He slammed the tray with the side of his hand, splattering soggy fries onto the table. The crowd flinched. Nia didn't. "You hear that?" Jordan announced, his voice rising theatrically. "Westbrook's new charity project thinks she's better than us." A roar of whispers circled around them. But then something changed. Tyler, who had been filming quietly until now, suddenly swiped across his screen and said loudly, "Going live. Drama Zone." The words hit like a spark thrown into gasoline. Screens popped up everywhere. Notifications pinged through the cafeteria. The group chat, Westbrook Unfiltered, exploded as students tuned in from classrooms, hallways, even the courtyard outside. Jordan looked around at the sea of phones pointed at him like flashing spotlights. His grin widened. Performers always love a big audience. "Oh, this is perfect," he laughed. "Now everyone gets to see Nia learn some manners." Nia's chest tightened. This wasn't harassment now. This was a show. Jordan stepped closer, so close she could feel the heat of his breath, smell the artificial mint gum he chewed to cover the cafeteria stink. "Nia," he whispered, voice dropping into something darker, more intimate. "I want to see exactly where your limit is." He lifted his hand, gently brushing a piece of cold fry off her shoulder. The touch made her skin crawl. Then he leaned in until their foreheads were almost touching. "I want to see how fast you break." Nia stiffened, her breath caught somewhere between fear and defiance. Jordan's smile twisted. "Because trust me, you will." He straightened up suddenly, voice turning loud and dangerous for the watching crowd. "I want to see your breaking point." He took 1 step closer. Nia instinctively stepped back, but Damon's arm was already there, blocking her escape. Jordan had pushed her to the edge, now he wanted the fall. The circle around them tightened until Nia could feel the heat of bodies pressing in, trapping her at the center, like an animal cornered for sport. She hated that feeling, the suffocating closeness, the hungry stares, the anticipation of violence disguised as entertainment. Westbrook wasn't a school right now, it was an arena. Jordan stepped forward, towering over her. "You had your chance," he said, voice thick with satisfaction. "Now we do things my way." Before she could brace herself, Jordan shoved her hard in the shoulder. The impact jolted through her spine. Her back slammed against a cafeteria table, rattling trays and silverware. Gasps erupted around them. Nia's knees buckled. The world tilted. For a second, she couldn't even breathe. Jordan didn't give her time to recover. He reached down and grabbed the strap of her backpack, her last bit of personal space, and yanked it upward. "What do you even have in here?" he mocked. "Books? Snacks? Stolen answers?" Nia's hand shot out on instinct. She wasn't thinking. She wasn't planning. Her body simply moved. She gripped the strap with both hands, pulling it back toward her. Jordan's eyes widened for a split second. He hadn't expected resistance. And in that sliver of a moment, something inside Nia snapped loose from fear. "Let go," she said, her voice trembling but steady enough to ring through the crowd. Jordan tightened his hold with a smirk, testing her strength. Message clear. If you resist, you lose. But Nia wasn't looking for permission. She planted her feet, shoved forward with all the force her small frame could muster, and ripped her backpack from Jordan's grip. The movement sent him stumbling half a step backward. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The crowd erupted, cheers, gasps, shouts. Students who had never so much as dared look Jordan in the eye suddenly leaned in, eyes wide like they were witnessing history. Holy crap, she pushed him! No way. She actually did it. For the first time, Jordan Hale, the untouchable king of Westbrook, had been physically pushed in front of an audience. His expression darkened instantly. Shock, embarrassment, then pure, venomous rage. "You little—" But before he could finish the sentence, Jordan did something Nia wasn't prepared for. He grabbed his own shoulder, twisted his body dramatically, and let himself fall backward. He hit the ground with a loud, deliberate thud. A theatrical gasp spilled from the crowd. Jordan groaned loudly, clutching his shoulder like he'd been struck with a baseball bat instead of a gentle push. Tyler, the ever-loyal cameraman, zoomed in instantly. "Oh yeah," Tyler breathed into the mic, thrilled. "I got that. It looks like she attacked him. Look at this angle." Nia's heart lurched into her throat. No, that's not what happened," she said, stepping forward. "He fell on purpose." Jordan groaned again for effect, rolling slightly as if in pain. He wasn't hurt. Not even close. But the camera didn't care about truth. It cared about angles. From Tyler's angle, from the angle he chose, it looked exactly like Nia had lunged at him. Jordan peered up at her through narrowed eyes, letting the illusion settle into the crowd like poison. "She hit me," he whispered loudly, just loud enough for multiple phones to capture it. "She attacked me." A murmur spread like wildfire. Nia attacked Jordan. No way. Dude, she's done. Damon cracked his knuckles, stepping beside Jordan. Luke mirrored him, face twisting into an eager grin. Tyler lowered the phone just enough to look at Jordan for instructions. Jordan didn't speak. He didn't need to. Damon smirked and rolled up his sleeves, flexing his hands like he'd been waiting for this moment all day. He turned to Jordan, silently asking for the green light. "Shall we do it now?" Damon asked, with a grin sharp enough to cut. Jordan didn't answer with words. He answered with a look, and violence followed. The cafeteria exploded into chaos. Chairs screeched across the floor. Students scrambled onto benches to get a better view. Phones rose like a forest of glowing screens, each one capturing the violence as if it were a trending performance rather than a real girl being cornered. Nia barely had time to gasp before Jordan lunged. His hand clamped around her throat with terrifying speed, strong, practiced, confident. He didn't squeeze hard enough to cut off her air completely, not yet. Just enough to make her body jolt and freeze, enough to let her know who held the power. "Come here," he snarled. He yanked her forward so violently her feet left the ground for a second. She clawed at his wrist, her breath breaking into short, panicked bursts. The cafeteria lights blurred. The roar of the crowd distorted into a thick wall of noise. Jordan slammed Nia onto the long metal lunch table. The impact rattled the entire row of trays and sent plastic forks skittering across the floor. Gasps erupted. A few students screamed, but no one stepped forward. Damon grabbed Nia's right arm and pinned it above her head with one massive hand. Luke seized her ankles, spreading them toward the edge of the table so she couldn't kick. Her body trembled violently, begging to escape. Tyler moved closer, camera up, capturing everything with sick precision. "Closer. Dude, closer," Jordan barked without looking up. Tyler obeyed instantly, angling the phone to get Naya's terrified face framed perfectly beneath Jordan's hand. Naya's breath came out in broken gasps as Jordan leaned over her, his fingers tightening ever so slightly around her throat. "Look at me," he ordered. She didn't want to. She wanted to disappear, to vanish from this nightmare. But fear dragged her eyes up to meet his. Jordan grinned as if he'd won something important. "You're going to apologize," he said, voice low and vicious. "Not for bumping me. Not for lying. You're going to apologize for thinking you could come in here and talk back." Naya's fingers trembled against the edge of the table, desperately trying to find something, anything to hold on to. I didn't," she tried to speak, but his grip tightened again, cutting her off. Jordan sighed dramatically, as though disappointed she wasn't performing well enough for the crowd. "Fine," he said. "We'll do it the hard way." He released her throat, but only long enough to reach under the table. His duffel bag sat beneath it, half unzipped. Students nearby leaned in, confused. Jordan's hand disappeared inside, and when it came out, the cafeteria froze. He was holding a baseball bat. Full size, black and silver. Illegal to carry around school. Deadly, in the wrong hands. And Jordan Hale was absolutely the wrong hands. A collective scream burst from the crowd. "Oh my God! Jordan, what the hell? He brought a bat!" Naya felt her blood turn to ice. Jordan raised the bat slowly, savoring the horrified looks around him. He pointed the tip toward Naya's face. "Now, is your apology serious enough?" he shouted, switching to the mocking Vietnamese tone he sometimes used when imitating immigrants at school. The room erupted. Some students backed away. Others leaned closer, unable to look away. Phones shook in trembling hands. Tyler zoomed in on the bat, whispering, "This is insane. The whole school's watching." Naya struggled against Damon and Luke, but her limbs felt weak, drained by fear and lack of air. Her chest heaved. Her vision flickered. Jordan lifted the bat over his shoulder like he was warming up for a swing. Her breath caught in her throat. "Last chance," he hissed. But before the bat came down, before the world shattered, a blur of movement appeared behind the crowd. Someone pushing through bodies. Someone running. Someone not filming. A voice cut through the chaos. "Move! Move out of the way!" Ariella, small, panicked, shaking, was sprinting toward the door with everything she had. She didn't look back. She didn't stop. She was running for help. Running for Nia's life. And on the other side of that phone call, someone was about to unleash a storm Westbrook High wasn't ready for. Ariella didn't stop running until the cafeteria doors slammed behind her and the hallway swallowed her in cold, echoing silence. Her legs nearly gave out. Her lungs burned with every panicked breath. Sweat clung to her forehead, and her fingers shook uncontrollably as she clutched her phone. Come on, pick up, please," she whispered, her voice cracking. The hallway was empty, lockers stretching in perfect rows, humming quietly under the fluorescent lights. A cruel contrast to the chaos erupting just behind those cafeteria doors. Ariella pressed her back to the wall, gasping, fighting the rising nausea, as the image of Jordan raising that baseball bat replayed violently in her mind. She had seen Jordan do awful things before. Everyone had. But this was different. This wasn't humiliation. This wasn't a shove or a shove back. This was violence, pure and raw, and Ariella knew with chilling clarity that if someone didn't intervene, Naya wouldn't walk away. Her trembling thumb finally hit the right name in her contacts, Raina Carter. She'd only met Naya's mother once on the first day of school, outside the main office. Raina had shaken Ariella's hand firmly, kindly, with eyes that held a depth Ariella couldn't name. Confidence, maybe, or sharpness, or something heavier. Back then, Ariella didn't know why a mom's eyes would look like that. Now she understood. The call rang once, twice, 3 times. Then, Raina Carter. Ariella's breath broke. Miss Carter, she choked, her words collapsing into sobs. Miss Carter, please, you must come immediately. They're attacking Nia. Jordan has a bat. A baseball bat. And he's about to. The rest dissolved into shaking breaths. For a moment, there was only silence on the other end. Not confusion, not shock, not panic, just silence, cold, absolute. Then Raina spoke, and her voice was nothing like Ariella expected. It was steel. Ariella, she said, slow and deliberate, tell me exactly what is happening. Ariella swallowed hard, trying to steady herself. They held his arms and legs. Jordan choked him. Tyler was live streaming, and he raised the stick like he was about to hit him. A strangled sob escaped her. She pressed a hand to her mouth, trying to hold herself together. Raina inhaled once, a calm, icy breath, a sound that felt like the air before a storm. Ariella, Raina said quietly, listen to me. Ariella nodded instinctively, even though Raina couldn't see her. Do not let anyone touch Nia again, Raina continued. Not one more second. Not one more hand. Do you understand me? Ariella wiped her tears with the back of her shaking hand. I'm trying, but no one's helping. No one. You did the right thing calling me, Raina said, her voice dropping into a lower, more dangerous tone. Now step back. Move somewhere safe. I'm on my way. Ariella blinked. How fast can you? I'm already in the car. Ariella froze. Raina hadn't sounded rushed or frantic. She sounded ready, as if she had been waiting for this call, as if part of her had always known something like this would happen. Raina spoke again, sharper. Ariella, stay out of sight, and don't hang up. Ariella pressed the phone tighter to her ear, her voice small and hoarse. Yes, Miss Carter. Raina's next words sent chills down Ariella's spine. Nia is my daughter, and no one hurts my daughter. The call didn't end. Raina kept the line open, and Ariella, terrified, shaking, helpless, could do nothing but listen to the heavy, accelerating hum of an engine on the other end. A mother coming. A storm rising. She turned her head toward the cafeteria doors, heart clawing at her ribs. Inside, the screams were growing louder. The crowd was surging. Jordan was shouting something she couldn't make out. And then, a noise sliced through everything. The sound of a baseball bat beginning its deadly descent. Inside the cafeteria, the bat was coming down, and Raina was coming for blood. The cafeteria had become a battlefield. Messy, loud, frantic. Dozens of students pressed in closer, fighting for an angle to film, their screens glowing like little blue windows into cruelty. Every second felt stretched thin, trembling on the edge of disaster. And then Jordan swung. The baseball bat sliced through the air with a terrifying whoosh, powered by the fury of a boy drunk on dominance. Nia twisted her head at the last possible moment. The bat slammed into the edge of the metal table instead of her skull. The impact was explosive. A thunderous clang echoed across the cafeteria. Trays bounced into the air. Food splattered across students' clothes, the floor, even the ceiling. Screams erupted, but they blurred into one long, horrified note. Nia's cry tore out of her throat before she could stop it. For a split second, she thought the bat had hit her. Her body reacted like it had. She curled inward, trembling uncontrollably, breath fractured into shards. But Jordan wasn't finished. He loved the fear in her eyes, loved the trembling, loved the chaos he'd created. He raised the bat again, his lips peeling into a smile that sent chills through anyone close enough to see it. Stay still, he barked. I'm not done, Nia writhed, desperation clawing through her chest. She tried to pull free from Damon and Luke, but their grips tightened like vices. Hold her, Jordan snapped. Damon pinned her shoulders. Luke trapped her ankles. Tyler leaned forward, filming every second like it was a movie he'd replay later. Nia gasped, voice cracking. Stop, please. Her words drowned beneath the roar of the crowd. Some students finally realized things were too far. Way too far. Faces went pale. A few lowered their phones. A few whispered frantically about calling someone, anyone, but Jordan heard those whispers. He spun toward the crowd, eyes blazing. "I'll deal with anyone who comes near me," he screamed, the words tearing through the air like shrapnel. The entire cafeteria recoiled. Students stumbled backward. A few tripped over chairs. No one dared move forward again. A suffocating layer of cowardice settled over the room, thick and choking. People wanted to help, but not enough to risk becoming the next victim. Jordan turned back to Nia, chest rising and falling with adrenaline. Then, in a sudden shift that made the moment even more terrifying, he dropped the bat. It clattered onto the table beside her. His hands, now free, shot straight to Nia's throat. Before she could react, he wrapped both hands tightly around her neck and squeezed. Nia's eyes bulged. A strangled sound escaped her. Her legs kicked helplessly against the air. Damon and Luke tightened their grip, pinning her body as her face turned crimson. Jordan leaned in, his voice low and wild. "You should have apologized. Now look at you." Her vision flickered. Black spots danced. Air refused to enter her lungs. Tyler whispered behind the camera, breathless. "Holy crap, dude's really doing it." Jordan's grip tightened further. Nia's fingers scraped weakly against his wrists. Her body convulsed, searching for oxygen, for freedom, for anything. Students around them began to scream, not to encourage now, but out of real fear. The brutality of the scene finally hit them. But no one stepped forward. No one touched Jordan. No one saved her. And then, amid the chaos, the shouting, the choking cries, a voice cut through the cafeteria like a blade. Sharp, loud, unmistakably authoritative. "Let go of the girl." The entire cafeteria froze. Jordan's hands loosened a fraction, not out of mercy, but out of pure shock. Every head jerked toward the cafeteria entrance. The voice wasn't familiar. Not a teacher, not a supervisor, not a student. It carried a weight that silenced the entire room. A weight only one kind of person held. Only one kind of adult had that tone. And when the students turned, they saw her. A figure framed in the doorway. A silhouette carved out by fury. A storm in human form, Raina Carter. And with every step she took, the cafeteria held its breath because the storm had finally arrived. The cafeteria doors didn't simply open. They exploded inward, as if the force behind them was too sharp, too focused, too unstoppable for hinges to handle gently. A cold gust swept through the room, though no wind followed. It was the kind of chill that came from pure human presence. Raina Carter stepped into the doorway, and the entire cafeteria fell silent, not gradually, not slowly, not one voice at a time. Silence dropped like a guillotine. 3 seconds. Exactly 3 seconds. Long enough for fear to bloom in every corner of the room. Short enough to feel like the air had been suspended by invisible hands. Raina didn't shout again. She didn't need to. Her expression alone carried the weight of a threat no one wanted to see fulfilled. Her face was carved from stone, jaw clenched, lips in a thin, controlled line, eyes dark as oil. It wasn't rage. Rage would have been safer, familiar even. But this was colder than fury. This was a calm so lethal, it frightened everyone more than screaming ever could. She wore a black fitted blazer and dark slacks, her outfit sharp enough to slice through the room's tension. In her right hand, she held a small leather badge wallet, just loose enough to be seen, just steady enough to be intentional. The badge glinted under the cafeteria lights. A former federal security behavioral analyst. And every student, even without knowing what that meant, felt their stomach drop. The bullies felt it first. Jordan's smirk faltered, just slightly. But it was the first crack he'd shown all day. Damon's hands slipped away from Nia's shoulders. Luke took a half step back, like someone had grabbed him by the spine and yanked. Tyler, camera still raised, swallowed so loudly the microphone caught it. Raina's eyes went straight to Nia. Her daughter sprawled on a table, gasping for breath, throat red from the pressure of Jordan's hands. The darkness in Raina's expression deepened. The room vibrated with tension, so thick it felt physical. Then, behind Raina, Another figure stumbled in panting, sweating, red-faced. Principal Collins. "Miss Carter," he stammered, pushing his glasses up as if that would somehow shield him from the storm brewing in front of him. This isn't what it looks like. I'm sure there's a misunderstanding." Raina didn't look at him, not even a glance. Her focus was entirely on Naya, and then on the boy who had dared touch her, Jordan. When Raina finally spoke, her voice was soft, a whisper carried on the edge of a blade. "I need to know something," she said, each word enunciated with chilling precision. Collins brightened slightly, thinking she was calming down, thinking he still had control. "Yes, of course, if you'll just—" Raina cut him off. Her eyes snapped toward him for the first time, and he froze mid-step. Her voice dropped, sharp enough to pierce bone. "Did I come here today to collect my daughter's body?" A hush rippled through the cafeteria. "Or to save her from you all?" The words slammed into the room like an earthquake. Some students gasped. Some clapped hands over their mouths. A few took a step back, as if the anger radiating off Raina was too much to stand near. Colin's face went ghost white. His throat bobbed helplessly as he tried to speak, but no sound came out. He looked like a man realizing he had wandered into the center of a battlefield with no armor. Jordan tried to laugh, tried to force his smirk back into place, even though his hand shook slightly at his side. "Calm down, lady," he said, though his voice was thinner than before. "It's not that serious. Your kid just—" But he never finished. Raina started walking, slow, measured, each step an executioner's drumbeat. And with every step, the crowd parted like water before a ship. Jordan swallowed hard. For the first time since this began, he understood fear. Raina stopped only when she stood toe-to-toe with the boy who had tried to choke her daughter, and she wasn't done. The cafeteria was so quiet that even Naya's broken breath sounded thunderous. She trembled on the cold metal table, her fingers pressed weakly to the bruises blossoming along her throat. Her legs dangled over the edge, barely able to hold her weight if she tried to stand. Raina reached her daughter in one swift stride. "Nia," she whispered, her voice cracking for the first time since stepping into the room. She placed a steadying hand behind Nia's back, lifting her gently, carefully. "Sit up, sweetheart. Breathe. I'm here." Nia choked on a sob, leaning into her mother's touch. Raina's thumb brushed the angry red marks around her throat, and the faint tremble in her hand betrayed what her face would not show: uncontained fury. She closed her eyes, inhaled sharply, and exhaled even sharper. Then she turned. Jordan stood 3 feet away. He tried to straighten his shoulders, puff out his chest, the way he always did when asserting dominance. But it wasn't working, not with the cafeteria watching, not with Raina Carter's eyes fixed on him like a predator studying prey. Raina's voice was low, each word sharp enough to cut. "You tried to kill a child today. Why?" Jordan swallowed, forcing a lazy smirk he didn't feel. "Kill? Lady? Relax. It was just—" Raina stepped closer, slicing off his sentence. "Don't say the word joke. Not after I watched you choke my daughter." Jordan hesitated. The smirk wavered. His bravado flickered like a dying bulb. "So what?" he muttered. "Kids fight. It's not a big deal." Raina moved another half-step forward, closing the distance until her shadow fell directly over him. "This," she said, voice steady as stone, "is not a fight. This is assault, restricted weapon use, battery, attempted bodily harm against a minor, aggravating circumstances because of physical restraint by multiple accomplices." The cafeteria gasped in unison. Jordan blinked. What?" Raina didn't stop. "Shall I continue? Because under the State Penal Code Section 18, subsection C, this qualifies as second-degree violent assault. Maximum sentence: up to 5 years in juvenile detention, with psychological evaluation required." Jordan's mouth fell open. Damon took 2 full steps back, hands up as if he'd just been accused of murder. Luke's face went gray. Tyler's camera lowered, tears welled in his eyes, and then phones buzzed. Notifications exploded across screens as the live stream chat lit up. OMG, Raina Carter. That. Raina Carter. She worked with the FBI. She used to profile violent offenders. Jordan is dead. Like, socially dead. Bro, this is a federal-level mom. Jordan's breath hitched. For the first time, he understood. He wasn't facing another scared student. He was facing a woman trained to dismantle monsters worse than him, and she wasn't intimidated by teenage theatrics. Raina's eyes narrowed. You think your father's money protects you? You think a school board seat makes you untouchable? Jordan flinched. Raina leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper, but carrying across the room with lethal clarity. You're not dangerous. You're sloppy. And stupid. She pointed at the live streamers. And now, you're recorded. Gasps. Murmurs. Students staring as their king crumbled. Raina turned her attention downward toward the baseball bat, still lying on the table beside Nia. Slowly, deliberately, she bent down. Every student held their breath. Her fingers closed around the handle. The room tensed. Raina lifted the bat with a controlled, terrifying calm, not as a threat but as evidence. She turned it in her hand, letting the cafeteria lights reflect off the polished metal. Then, she stepped forward and slammed the bat onto the table in front of Jordan. The sound reverberated like a gunshot. Jordan jumped. Several students screamed. Even Damon flinched. Raina held his gaze. This, she said coldly, is what you brought into a school. And this, she pointed at Nia, is who you used it on. Jordan's breath came fast, uneven. He was cornered, exposed, and finally afraid. And Raina wasn't finished because the real punishment was about to begin. The cafeteria felt like it was holding its breath. Hundreds of students surrounded the scene, phones lifted high, lenses trembling. The only sound was the faint humming of the overhead lights and the ragged breaths of the boys who'd spent all afternoon terrorizing others, now cornered by the one person they never expected to face. Raina steadied the baseball bat on the table as if laying down a final piece of evidence in a courtroom. Then she looked directly at Jordan. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Kneel down, she commanded. Her tone was devastatingly calm. Now, shock rippled through the room. Jordan's face contorted with disbelief. You're crazy, he spat. I don't kneel for anyone. Raina didn't flinch. I don't care what you think you are, she said, her words slicing through the air. You assaulted a minor. On camera. With a weapon. You nearly choked her unconscious. She nodded slightly toward the phone's recording. You're already guilty. The only thing you get to choose now is how public your downfall becomes. Jordan's jaw clenched, his hands curled into fists. Raina raised a cold eyebrow. Let me make this clearer. If you don't kneel, I will call the police. Officers will arrive, handcuff you in front of every student here, and haul you out through that door. She pointed to the entrance with a slow, steady gesture. You choose the humiliation. The cafeteria erupted in whispers. Oh my God, she's serious. He's done for. No way, Jordan kneels, no way. Jordan swallowed hard, sweat beading at his forehead. But Raina wasn't waiting for him. Her voice dropped even lower, almost a whisper. Damon, he jolted at the sound of his name. Down. Damon looked at Jordan as if hoping for a signal, a lifeline, anything. But Jordan's eyes were locked on Raina. And for the first time, the confidence behind them was gone. Damon's knees buckled. He hit the floor hard. A wave of gasps swept the room. Raina turned her head slightly. Luke. Luke's lips trembled. He dropped a beat after Damon, falling into position with a shudder. Students nearby covered their mouths. Raina finally looked at Tyler. He was already crying. He didn't wait for his name. He just fell to his knees, sobbing into his sleeves. The cafeteria buzzed like a live wire, shocked, electric, terrified. Only Jordan remained standing. Raina stepped closer, stopping just inches from him. You're the leader, aren't you? She said quietly. Then lead. Jordan's breath hitched. His voice cracked when he tried to speak. I'm not kneeling. Raina lifted her phone, thumb poised over her contacts. Okay, she said. Then I'll dial. Jordan stared at the screen, at the cameras, at the hundreds of eyes waiting. His bravado shattered, his knees shook, and then he broke. Jordan Hale Westbrook's untouchable golden boy slowly lowered himself to the floor. A tidal wave of gasps hit the room. Phones shook from excitement. Live stream chat exploded. Some students covered their faces in disbelief. Others screamed. He knelt before Raina Carter. Raina's voice cut through the chaos like a judge delivering a sentence. "Now," she said, looking at all four boys, "you will admit what you did. Out loud, every word." Jordan's throat tightened. The cafeteria watched. The cameras recorded. There was no escape. Raina wasn't leaving the school, not yet. The real reckoning was just beginning. The atmosphere inside Principal Collins' office was suffocating, thick, stale, and heavy, with the weight of truth everyone wished they could run from. The blinds were half closed, casting harsh stripes of fluorescent light across the room. The door shut behind the last staff member with a sharp click, sealing everyone inside like participants in a trial. Raina Carter stood at the head of the table, not sitting, not resting, standing untouchable, unshaken, unblinking. Across from her sat Principal Collins, wiping sweat from his forehead with a trembling hand. His voice had been cracking since the moment they entered the room. Behind him were two supervising teachers, both visibly uncomfortable, and in the corner, crowded together like frightened animals, Jordan, Damon, Luke, and Tyler. None of them spoke. None of them dared. Raina set her phone on the conference table, opened a file, and pressed play. Ariella's recording filled the room. Naya's screams, Jordan's voice, the bat slamming onto metal, the laughter of accomplices, the live stream commentary, the choking. Every sound sharpened the air like broken glass. Collins shifted uncomfortably in his chair, trying to maintain authority he clearly didn't have. "Miss Carter," he began weakly, "let's not escalate. I'm sure Jordan didn't intend." Raina's eyes snapped up. "Didn't intend?" she repeated, voice icy. "He hit a table with a bat inches from my daughter's skull. He strangled her. He restrained her while his friends held her down." She stepped closer, her voice lowering into a lethal blade. "If Ariella hadn't called me, I would be identifying my child in a morgue tonight." The room froze. Collins tried again, his tone falsely gentle. "You have to understand. Westbrook's athletics program." Raina slammed a folder onto the table. The crack echoed through the room like a gunshot. "Westbrook does not need a violent offender to win trophies." She leaned over the desk, her shadow falling across Collins' papers. "And you do not need your job if you expect me to ignore this." Damon and Luke stiffened, their faces draining of all color. Tyler's breath hitched. Jordan stared at the floor, jaw clenched so tightly the muscle twitched. Collins blinked rapidly. His mouth opened and closed like he was searching for a script that no longer existed. And then, a voice rose from the back of the room, quivering at first, then resolute. "This isn't the first time." Everyone turned. A supervising teacher, Mr. Lowell, had stepped forward, eyes troubled. "Jordan has attacked black students before," he said quietly. "Two, actually. Both left the school. They filed reports, but..." Collins dismissed them. Collins shot up from his chair. "That is not accurate." "It is," Lowell insisted. "You told us the board wouldn't like the attention. You said athletes needed protection." A stunned silence washed over the room. The truth had been sitting here all along, ignored, buried, silenced. Raina straightened slowly. "Thank you," she said to Lowell. Her tone carried both gratitude and the promise of reckoning. Collins sputtered, "Miss Carter, this is being blown out of..." "No," Raina cut in sharply. "This is the truth surfacing." She gathered the files, the notes, the video evidence, each piece a nail in the coffin of the old system that let Jordan rule unchecked. Raina's final words were controlled, cold, and absolute. "I have one more step to take before my daughter gets justice, and trust me, no one in this room will be able to stop it." Jordan's breath hitched. Collins collapsed back into his chair. Raina had exposed the corruption, now she would secure Nia's future. The hallway outside the principal's office was nothing like the cafeteria. No screaming, no phones in the air, no crowd, just stillness, broken only by the soft hum of the overhead lights and the rapid beating in Nia's chest. She stood there, small and bruised, her fingers trembling as she reached for her throat. The skin was tender, a painful reminder of how close she had come to losing everything. The moment Raina stepped out of the office, Nia collapsed into her mother's arms. She didn't cry softly. She broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks in violent waves, sobs shaking through her entire body. Her knees nearly buckled, and Raina caught her, holding her tight, steady, anchoring her like a pillar. "Oh, baby," Raina whispered, stroking the back of her daughter's head. "You're safe. You're safe now." Nia buried her face in Raina's shoulder, the words pouring out in fragments. I thought he was going to. I couldn't breathe. They held me down." Raina shut her eyes, fighting the rage rising inside her. She pressed a kiss to Nia's forehead and spoke with a fierce, unwavering tenderness. "No one is ever going to touch you again. Not here, not anywhere. I swear it." Nia clung even tighter, the promise hitting her like oxygen to collapsing lungs. A soft sound interrupted them. "Eh? Nia?" Nia turned. Ariella stood a few steps away, eyes red, voice small, hands twisting nervously in front of her. She looked like she had aged a decade in the last hour. Fear, guilt, relief, all of it sat on her face. "I'm so sorry," Ariella said in a trembling whisper. "I should have done something sooner. I saw how Jordan treated other kids, and I knew it was wrong. But I stayed quiet, because I was scared." Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry I didn't help you before today." The hallway fell silent again. Nia's breath shook, but she stepped forward. "Ariella, you did help," Nia said softly. "You're the reason I'm still here." Ariella's eyes filled with tears. Nia reached out and pulled her into a hug. And just like that, something shifted. A bond forming not from convenience, not from pity, but from shared fear and courage. A friendship born in the worst moment of their lives. Raina watched them, her expression softening slightly. When they pulled apart, Raina placed a hand on Nia's shoulder. "Sweetheart," she began, voice gentle but purposeful. "There's something I need to tell you." Nia blinked away the wetness in her eyes. "What is it, Mom?" Raina crouched, so they were eye level. "You're not just going to be safe," she said. "You're going to be somewhere you belong. Somewhere your talent is recognized." Nia frowned slightly. "Mom, what do you mean?" Raina took her daughter's hands. "I spoke to the district office weeks ago," she revealed. "And after today, they approved the transfer immediately." She smiled soft, proud. "Nia, you're moving into the gifted program, the advanced talent track. You won't be anywhere near those boys again." Nia stared at her, stunned. "You mean I'm out of their wing? Completely?" "Completely," Raina confirmed. "You're going where you should have been from the start." Ariella covered her mouth, shocked. Nia's eyes brimmed with tears again, but this time they weren't from fear. "This is real?" she whispered. Raina nodded. "Very real." Nia let out a breath she'd been holding her whole life. But peace never lasted long at Westbrook High. Further down the hall, several students overheard ones who had benefited from the toxic hierarchy Jordan helped create. They exchanged looks. Scowls grew, and whispers began to spread like smoke. And not everyone was happy to see Nia rise, some were about to push back. By the next morning, Westbrook High felt nothing like the school it had been 24 hours earlier. The air buzzed with tension. Whispers followed Nia wherever she walked, and every phone screen, every hallway conversation, every hushed teacher meeting revolved around one thing: the video. Not just one video, hundreds. Clips of Jordan, Damon, Luke, and Tyler kneeling on the cafeteria floor had spread like wildfire across every platform within the district. Instagram Reels, TikTok edits, parents' Facebook groups. Even teachers' private message threads. The most viral one was only 7 seconds long. It showed Raina stepping toward Jordan with the bat lying on the table, her voice calm but lethal. Kneel down. Now. Freeze frame. Zoom. Captions. 10,000 shares overnight. Number Justice for Naya trended across the entire county. The school's official email inbox crashed twice under the weight of incoming complaints. Students arrived on campus gripping their phones, showing each other screenshots. No way that actually happened. Jordan looks terrified. Who is Nia's mom? The gossip didn't stop there. Parents were furious. In the parent group chats, message bubbles flew non-stop. This is unacceptable. My daughter could have been next. Collins needs to be fired immediately. How did they let weapons into the cafeteria? I'm calling the district today. Screenshots leaked. Emails leaked. Angry voice messages leaked. The story spilled beyond the school. Local reporters caught wind of it. By Jashansh A.M. Two were standing outside the front gate, cameras ready, shouting questions at passing students. Were you there when the assault happened? Is it true the principal protected the attacker? Can anyone confirm the mother worked with federal law enforcement? Teachers were instructed not to speak to the media, but the damage was already done. Inside the school, the administration spiraled. Principal Collins could barely walk 30 steps without another staff member stopping him, each bringing worse news. Parents want an emergency meeting. The superintendent is demanding a report. A board member called twice. Press is requesting a statement. But the final blow arrived unexpectedly. In the gym between classes, a group of varsity athletes, some from basketball, some from track, stepped forward as a unified cluster. One girl, tall, confident, eyes steady, spoke loudly enough to echo. Jordan attacked a freshman last semester, a black student. We reported it. Collins buried it. Silence spread across the gym like spilled ink. Another athlete stepped up. And 2 years ago, same story. Another kid of color, same cover-up. Within minutes, the accusations flooded through the school like a seismic wave. Group chats erupted. Threads grew from dozens of screenshots. Old messages resurfaced. Don't bother reporting him. Collins protects him. This school is a mess. The weight of truth long buried finally crushed the administration. By lunchtime, a student-created banner unfurled across the courtyard. Number Justice for Nya. End the cover-up. Fire Collins. The chant began quietly, 3 or 4 students shouting. Then more joined. And more. Soon, the courtyard roared with raw fury. Justice for Nya. Justice for Naya. Raina, arriving at the school for a follow-up meeting, watched from the front gate. Her expression didn't soften. She wasn't here for applause. She was here for justice. And the cracks in Westbrook's foundation were finally showing. Principal Collins knew it too. So, trembling and cornered, he sent out one final announcement. All staff, student leaders, and concerned parents. Mandatory emergency meeting at 4 p.m. Attendance required. Dido. The meeting would decide everything: reputations, consequences, and the end of Westbrook's old hierarchy. The auditorium at Westbrook High had never been this full. Rows of metal folding chairs stretched wall to wall, packed with furious parents, nervous teachers, anxious students, and board members whispering behind clipboards. The air buzzed with tension, thick, restless, and close to snapping. On stage sat the panel. Principal Collins, pale and sweating. Vice Principal Hartley, stiff as a statue. 3 school board members. And in the front row, Raina Carter, composed but lethal in her quiet fury. To the side stood Jordan Hale with his parents. His mother looked horrified. His father looked furious, but not at his son. At the fact that his power was slipping. Damon, Luke, and Tyler slouched behind him, trying to make themselves invisible. The superintendent stepped to the microphone. "We are here today to address the events of yesterday's violent incident," he announced. "We will begin with testimony." Raina rose. The room went silent. She walked to the center of the stage. heels striking the wood with sharp precision. She didn't bother with pleasantries. She didn't need them. She placed her phone on the podium and pressed play. The screen behind her lit up. The cafeteria. Nia pinned to the table. Jordan's hand around her throat. The baseball bat raised over her head. Damon and Luke restraining her. Tyler, filming. Nia's desperate gasps. Every horrific second echoed across the auditorium speakers. Mothers covered their mouths. Fathers clenched their fists. Teachers looked away, ashamed. When the video ended, Raina lifted her gaze. "This," she said, her voice steady, "is not bullying. This is violence. This is assault. This is attempted harm with a weapon. And it happened because this school protected a boy who has done the same thing before. Multiple times." Gasps. Murmurs. Eyes turned toward Collins. Raina continued, pulling out a folder. "These are the statements of students past and present who reported Jordan for targeting black students. Reports that were dismissed, suppressed, ignored." She handed the folder to the superintendent. "And here," she added, pulling out a second stack, "are emails from teachers who were discouraged from filing incident reports. Some were threatened with disciplinary action if they did." Colin's face drained of all color. Raina's voice sharpened. "You didn't fail the school. You failed every child you were supposed to protect." Silence swallowed the room. Then the superintendent cleared his throat. "Given the evidence presented, the board has voted effective immediately. Jordan Hale is suspended indefinitely from Westbrook High. Damon Price, Luke Harris, and Tyler Barnes are formally placed on disciplinary probation with mandatory intervention programs." A wave of relieved applause broke out. Jordan slumped backward in his chair, eyes wide with disbelief. His father grabbed his arm, but the boy hardly reacted. Then came the final blow. The superintendent turned toward Collins. "Principal Collins," he said slowly, "the board has come to a conclusion regarding your role." Collins straightened, forcing a weak smile. "We believe," the superintendent continued, "that your continued leadership poses a liability to this school." Gasps echoed through the auditorium. "Therefore, effective immediately, you are removed from your position as principal of Westbrook High." The room erupted. Shouts, cheers, applause. Teachers stood, parents clapped, students screamed. Collins collapsed back into his chair, stunned. Jordan stared at him, his shield, his protector falling in front of everyone. With Collins gone, Jordan's world cracked open. He looked like he might pass out, and in the middle of the chaos, Raina lifted a hand. The room quieted as if by instinct. She stepped once more to the microphone. "Before we end," Raina said, voice calm and chilling, "there is one last thing that needs to be addressed." Her final words would change Westbrook High forever. The afternoon sun bathed Westbrook High in warm gold, softening the sharp edges of the buildings and casting long shadows across the courtyard. Students gathered in clusters, murmuring with an energy completely different from the chaos of days before. This time, the air felt lighter, hopeful, almost reborn. A small stage had been set up in the center of the courtyard. Teachers stood to the side. Parents filled the benches. News cameras lined the edges. Even the superintendent attended, hands clasped behind his back as if acknowledging something monumental. At the front stood Nia. Just days ago, she had been pinned to a cafeteria table, humiliated, terrified, voiceless. Now she stood tall, the sun catching the faint bruises on her neck like medals of survival. A microphone waited before her. A crowd waited behind it. Raina stood nearby, Ariella at her side, both watching with a mix of pride and quiet fear. They knew how much this moment meant. They knew how much courage it demanded. When Nia stepped forward, the courtyard fell completely silent. She took a shaky breath, then another, and she spoke. "At this school," she began, her voice small but steady, "I learned something the hard way. Not just how cruel people can be, but how strong we have to be when no one stands with us." Several students lowered their eyes. Nia continued, gathering strength as she spoke. "I was hurt. I was scared, and so many people watched it happen. Her gaze swept the crowd, not accusing, but honest. I won't pretend that didn't break me, but I'm still here, and I want to use my voice now, so no one else has to go through what I did. A ripple of emotion moved through the courtyard. A few students wiped their cheeks. A teacher sniffed quietly. Naya straightened, her voice growing firmer. Bullying is not a joke. Racism is not kids being kids. And silence is not harmless. Silence lets violence grow. Her words were steady, strong, a truth the entire school needed to hear. Today, she said, I'm choosing not to be silent anymore. Applause erupted loud, thunderous, rising like a wave that washed over her. Students cheered, parents stood. A chant even began somewhere near the front. Nia! 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 Behind the crowd, Jordan, Damon, Luke and Tyler stood apart wearing reflective vests, their wrists already sore from hauling trash as part of the school's mandated behavior rehabilitation program. Community service, counseling, mandatory accountability sessions. Their new reality. They weren't kings anymore. They were consequences. Living, walking, consequences. The noise grew, but Nia didn't look back at them. Her eyes stayed forward. The sun dipped lower. The moment softened. Raina walked up beside her daughter, placing a warm hand against Nia's back. In a quiet voice so soft only Nia could hear, she whispered, "You survived hell, baby. But look at you now." She smiled, pride shimmering in her eyes. "You're going to change this school, and I believe in you." Nia's breath caught. Not from fear this time, but from the realization that Raina wasn't just right. She already had changed something. The crowd, the school, herself. The camera pulled back. The courtyard glowed. Students surrounded her. Raina stood beside her like a guardian. Ariella smiled from the front row, and Nia Carter, bruised, brave, unbroken, lifted her chin with quiet determination. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning, a new chapter, a new fire, a new fight, her fight, and the screen faded on her smile, confident, fierce, unstoppable, as her journey truly began. And that's how the cafeteria kings of Westbrook High went from acting untouchable to kneeling on the floor, begging for mercy they never gave anyone else. Nia didn't just survive. She exposed an entire system built to protect bullies, and her mother made sure every mask in that school was ripped clean off. But now I want to hear your thoughts. If you were in that cafeteria, would you have stepped in or stayed silent like the others? Drop your answer below. If this story pulled you in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because more shocking stories are coming. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next.